The wind blew mournfully over the snow, chasing dancing curls of spicules across the frozen surface that sparkled with frost. Overhead, the stars in the enormous arc of black sky also sparkled like frost. Only one was bigger than a spark, a sun millions of miles away, but still able to reach the planet with its pure white light to cast a dim illumination over the pale, ghostly landscape. Two dark shapes were visible against the pallid background of the snow. A rectangular box with a light on its roof, and a man standing next to it, the hands thrust deep into his jacket pockets, pushing back the long skirts of his trench coat. The doctor glanced up. The sky wouldn't be clear for much longer. A long, dark bank of cloud was approaching. Even now, soft grey tendrils were reaching out to blank out the stars, and snowflakes were beginning to sprinkle down like salt.
"Snow,"
said a voice softly.
"You love snow, don't you, Doctor?"
The doctor turned his head. Dastiriam was standing beside him, the folds of her robe beginning to stir and flutter in the rising breeze as she gazed at the white star hanging above the distant horizon. The snowflakes caught in her hair shone like glitter. The doctor looked her up and down.
"Are you warm enough in that? Bit flimsy for this sort of environment. Not exactly the climate for coming out without your cardigan."
He jerked a thumb over his shoulder in the direction of the TARDIS.
"Got a scarf in there I could lend you if you like."
Dastiriam smiled.
"Ah, yes, the scarf. The unforgettable scarf. It's a gallant offer, Doctor, but happily it's not needed. I spent a great deal of time in an environment much colder than this, and yet here I am."
Her eyes travelled the length of the horizon and along the advancing front of cloud before coming to rest on his face.
"Wherever here is."
"Ah, I thought you'd know. You always seem to know where to find me."
"Ah, but there's a connection between you and me, Doctor. A thread through time and space that links us. I'm always at one end, you're always at the other. Like Theseus in the Minotaur's lair, I have only to follow the thread wherever it leads, and I find you, no matter where or when you are."
"Well, good for you."
"I would have expected you to be more impressed. It takes skill to hit a moving target, you know. Which is, I might add, a term that could have been invented for you."
She turned and briefly ran a hand down the side of the TARDIS. The doctor noted the fact, his eyes momentarily intent, but he chose not to voice his thoughts on her action. Whatever was going on in his mind, his face was giving nothing away.
"If you've gone to that much trouble, presumably you've got something important on your mind. Feel like sharing? Or have you dropped by just to be enigmatic again? Either way, you might not have too long. There's a storm on its way, in case you hadn't noticed."
"An oncoming storm, Doctor?"
The doctor sniffed.
"Takes one to know one."
"Despite your flippancy, you speak more truly than you know. There is a storm coming, or something like one."
The abrupt seriousness of her tone prompted him to give her a sharp look, but she ignored it.
"Which is why I thought it was time for us to discuss reality. Or rather, realities. How many would you say there are?"
"Ooh, how many do you want?"
"I was hoping we could converse seriously."
Sport. Ha! Where's your sense of fun? Still, if that's the way you want it, why not? Converse on the universe as a first bid. If it was a game of poker, which is a game you're probably very good at, by the way, because you never give anything away, I could up the stakes to the multiverse, and my final bid would have to be the omniverse. Or did you just want to make up verse? Making it up might mean it wasn't real, of course. Can't always tell what's real and what's not, can you? You, for instance, wonder if you're real, or whether you're just my imaginary friend.
He glanced at her sidelong, hoping for an interpretable reaction, but her bland smile remained unchanged. He shrugged inwardly and went on.
"What, no comment? That makes you blank verse, doesn't it? I don't know, maybe I could come up with a sonnet. On it with a sonnet. My mate Will was good at that, better than I ever could be. Sonnets have to follow rules, strict rules. Not good with rules, me."
"Yes, I remember you telling me that once before."
A smile of genuine amusement hovered momentarily on Dastiriam's lips. Then she went on, more seriously.
"But some rules are necessary, and to ignore them is dangerous. such as the rules that decree that alternative dimensions, alternative realities, shouldn't meet. There shouldn't be any crossover between them. When the normal rules are enforced, that can't happen. But sometimes, as a result of extraordinary events, ones that you are usually at the centre of, the normal rules become suspended. They can be transcended, even broken. And then things can happen that can't ordinarily happen. You should know that better than anyone, Doctor. You with a self in the same alternative reality where Rose Tyler now is.
You told me once you were breaking rules just by being here. Are those the rules we're talking about?
I'm afraid so. Because sometimes, when the need becomes sufficiently pressing, a way has to be found for an entity to cross from one reality to another.
Oh, really? Now, I wonder what would be pressing enough to make somebody risk doing that, when they probably know perfectly well it causes breaches between one universe and the next.
And the complications it can cause. Parallel universes contain parallel versions of people, and their outcomes aren't always identical. Think of Pete Tyler, Jackie Tyler, even yourself, Doctor. Perhaps you should ask yourself what would be pressing enough for such risks to be taken with every universe there is.
The Doctor looked at her, his eyes intent.
And what would my answer be?
That I'm here to deliver a message, a letter if you like, to you. You need to know that in another time and place, in another universe, there's a doctor who knows something vital that you don't yet know, but will need to know. And that doctor can't come to tell you in person, so a way was found to send me instead.
The Doctor stared at her for a moment. Then he suddenly span round in a complete circle and smacked the side of the TARDIS with his flattened palm.
Don't believe it. Centuries of procrastination and she's finally telling me something. Ah!
He focused on Dasterium again and drove an intense look at her.
So what's this message? What is it I need to know? And why you? It must be someone very important, very special to him or her. Why would this other me risk you? Who are you?
The corners of her mouth twitched momentarily.
I told you long ago that you may know me as Dasterium. I never said that was my name. Think about it, Doctor.
Then she became sombre again.
But for the time being, you should be ready to receive my message. The moment has almost arrived. By the time we see each other again, we will have talked.
The Doctor raised his eyebrows.
What's this we're doing at the moment, then?
When I say we, not exactly the same we. Not exactly the same you, and not exactly the same me. But it has happened. That is, it will have happened. Sorry, sometimes it's very hard to distinguish properly between the past and the present and the future, especially when you see them, experience them all at once. But then, you know that, don't you?
The Doctor made an impatient gesture with one hand, as if brushing away the digression.
Oh, which is lovely. Yes, thank you. But what is it we'll have talked about?
Dasterium looked at him gravely.
You may be the oncoming storm, Doctor, but there's another storm that's oncoming, and you have to be ready to meet it.
What do you mean by storm? What sort of storm?
That's what I can't tell you. We know that it's coming, but exactly what it is can't be determined. Whether we'll ever be able to do so before the event itself commences is unknown. Something is blurring time, concealing vital details from us. And even though there's so much we don't yet know, it wasn't possible to delay any longer before warning you. To wait until the precise nature of the threat is known would be too late. What is known is that of all the doctors in all the universes, it's you, the Doctor in this universe, who will be the key to any hope for the continued existence of everything everywhere. But I can tell you that you won't be alone, Doctor. We'll face it with you.
And who exactly are we when we're at home?
The Doctor probed. A flurry of snow suddenly blew against his face, and he instinctively closed his eyes for an instant until it had passed. When he opened them again, it was to find he was addressing empty air. Right in front of his eyes, between one moment and the next, she'd vanished.
Oh, right,
said the Doctor slowly, realising what use she'd made of that one brief crucial instant That one small reflexive physical reaction that he hadn't been able to prevent.
I blinked, didn't I? I blinked and I missed you.
He frowned and spoke severely to the surrounding silence.
Note to self. Next time, Doctor, don't blink. Whatever you do, don't blink.